The moment my sister told everyone I was a nobody, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because sitting across from her at that Christmas dinner was the one document that could destroy everything she thought she had built. She just didn't know it yet. My name is Natalie Brooks. I'm 34 years old, a single mother to my 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, and for most of my family's life, I was the daughter nobody took seriously. My older sister Claire was the successful one. At least, that's what everyone believed. She had the beautiful house, the expensive SUV, the polished husband, and the kind of social life my mother loved bragging about. I had Sophie, a small apartment outside Seattle, and a business nobody in my family understood. So when my mother invited everyone over for Christmas dinner, I already knew what role I'd be playing. The family disappointment. I just didn't know they'd finally push me too far. The dinner started beautifully. My mother had decorated the dining room with candles and silver ornaments. Claire and her husband, Daniel, arrived carrying expensive gifts. My younger brother Ryan brought his girlfriend. And then there was me. I came through the front door carrying a homemade pie Sophie had helped me bake. Claire looked at it and smiled. "That's adorable," she said. I knew exactly what she meant. Cheap. Homemade. Not good enough for her world. I ignored it and helped Sophie take off her coat. For the first hour, everything stayed polite. Then my mother started talking about Claire and Daniel's new business venture. "We're so proud of them," she said. "They've finally reached the level they've always dreamed about." Daniel smiled. Claire looked around the table. Then she looked directly at me. "What about you, Natalie?" she asked. "Still doing that little website thing?" I put down my fork. "It's grown quite a bit." Claire laughed. "Right. Your little online shop. It's not really a shop anymore." Daniel leaned back. "So what is it?" I hesitated. I'd learned never to explain my business to my family. They didn't understand it, and, honestly, I had stopped needing them to. "It's a consulting company," I said. Claire raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "Small businesses." She smiled. "Well, at least you're trying." Sophie looked at me. I could see she knew I was uncomfortable. So I changed the subject. But Claire wasn't finished. A few minutes later, she started talking about the house she and Daniel were planning to buy. It was a beautiful property overlooking Lake Washington. The price was enormous. My mother immediately congratulated them. Then Claire said something that made the entire table go quiet. "We're actually waiting for the final financing approval." Daniel nodded. "Should be done next week." I looked down at my plate. I knew exactly which property they were talking about, because I'd been negotiating the purchase for 6 months. Not for myself. For my company. The property was going to become the headquarters of my rapidly growing business. But I hadn't told anyone. Claire suddenly looked at me. "Natalie, you know what's funny?" I looked up. "You've had all these opportunities, but somehow you're still struggling." My mother sighed. "Claire." "No, Mom. I'm just saying the truth." Daniel chuckled. Claire continued. "She had a college degree. She could have gotten a real career. Instead, she had a baby, quit her job, and started playing entrepreneur." My face burned. Sophie stopped eating. That was when I finally spoke. "Don't talk about my daughter like she's the reason I failed." Claire rolled her eyes. "I didn't say Sophie was a failure. You implied it." Daniel suddenly jumped in. "Let's not turn Christmas into another Natalie argument." Another. That word hurt more than anything else. Because apparently, defending myself was an argument. My mother looked at me. "Natalie, maybe Claire has a point. You can't keep pretending everything is going perfectly." I stared at her. Who said I was pretending? Nobody answered. Then Claire laughed softly. "You always do this." "Do what?" "Act mysterious. Like you're secretly successful and everyone else just doesn't understand you." She looked around the table. "Let's be honest. If Natalie were actually successful, we'd know." I didn't respond. Because there was something she didn't know. Something none of them knew. 3 years earlier, I'd started a tiny consulting service from my apartment. I helped struggling local businesses automate their online sales and customer systems. At first, I had 3 clients. Then 7. Then 30. A national retailer hired me. Then another. Within 18 months, I had a team. Within 2 years, we were working with companies across the country. And 6 months before that Christmas dinner, a major technology company had approached me about acquiring my platform. I said no. Instead, I accepted a minority investment that valued my company at $38 million. I didn't tell my family. Not because I wanted revenge. I simply wanted one thing I'd never gotten from them. A life that belonged to me. But there was another secret. 6 months earlier, my company had begun purchasing commercial properties around Seattle. And the property Claire and Daniel were planning to buy? It belonged to my company. They had submitted an offer through a broker. I had never connected the dots because the paperwork had been handled by my legal team. Until that Christmas dinner. Claire suddenly stood up. She grabbed a bottle of wine. Actually, Natalie, maybe you should take some advice from Daniel and me. I looked at her. Advice? Stop wasting time pretending you're something you're not. Daniel gave her a warning look. But Claire continued. You're a single mom running some tiny business from an apartment. That's not success. Sophie pushed her chair back. Mom, can we go? I looked at my daughter. Then at my sister. And something inside me finally became very calm. I reached for my coat. Sure. My mother looked shocked. You're leaving? Yes. Claire smiled. Of course she is. I stopped at the doorway. Then I turned around. Claire. What? How's the Lake Washington house? Her smile disappeared. What about it? Beautiful property. Daniel stared at me. I continued. Especially the office space upstairs. His expression changed. How do you know about that? I smiled. Because I've been inside it. Claire looked confused. What are you talking about? I didn't answer. I took Sophie's hand and walked out. The next morning, my attorney called me. Natalie, there's a problem. What happened? Your sister's husband has been negotiating directly with the broker. I know. There's more. They submitted an unusually aggressive offer. I sighed. Did they sign anything? Not yet. Good. There was a pause. Then my attorney asked, do you want me to reject their offer? I looked through my apartment window at Sophie playing with her Christmas presents. No. What do you want to do? I smiled. Send them the contract. The next afternoon, Claire called me. I didn't answer. She called again. Then Daniel. Then my mother. Finally, I received a text from Claire. Call me. Now. I didn't. 20 minutes later, another message arrived. What did you do? I opened my laptop. My attorney had forwarded me the signed ownership documents. I replied with one sentence. I didn't do anything. You just finally found out who owned the property. The phone rang immediately. This time I answered. Claire was almost screaming. Natalie, why does your company own that house? I leaned back. Because we bought it. But we're buying it. No. You were trying to buy it. Daniel came onto the call. Wait. Your company. I could hear the confusion in his voice. What company? I almost laughed. The one you called a little website. Silence. Then Claire whispered. How much is your company worth? I didn't answer. Daniel asked again. Natalie, how much? Enough. That's not an answer. 38 million. Nobody spoke. Then my mother came onto the phone. $38 million? I closed my eyes. Yes. Claire started crying. Not because she was proud of me. Because she suddenly understood that she'd spent years looking down on someone who had quietly built something far bigger than anything she'd imagined. But then she said something I didn't expect. Why didn't you tell us? That question stayed with me. Because the truth was uncomfortable. I could have told them. I chose not to. And maybe part of me had wanted to see how they'd treat me when they thought I had nothing. I answered honestly. Because I wanted to know whether you'd love me without the money. My mother's voice broke. Natalie. No, Mom. You all had years to ask what I was building. You never did. Claire was silent. I continued. You asked whether I had a real job. You asked why I lived in an apartment. You asked why I wasn't married. You asked what I'd done with my education. I took a breath. Nobody ever asked if I was happy. Nobody answered. Then Daniel said something that changed the conversation. Natalie, Claire didn't know. I know. She didn't know you were the owner. That's the problem. What? She shouldn't have needed to know. Silence. She should have treated me like her sister. That was the first time Claire didn't argue. Weeks passed. I didn't kick Claire and Daniel out of a house they were living in. I didn't ruin their business. I didn't humiliate them publicly. Instead, I did something that surprised even me. I gave them a choice. I told them they could still purchase the property, but they would pay the same price I'd originally planned to charge another buyer. No family discount. No special treatment. No revenge. Just business. Claire eventually accepted. But something between us had changed. A few months later, she came to my office. For the first time, she wasn't wearing designer clothes or acting like she was better than everyone. She just looked tired. "I owe you an apology," she said. I didn't say anything. She continued. "I spent years believing success looked like me." I smiled slightly. "And now?" She looked around my office. "Now I think I was just loud about mine." I laughed. It was the first time we'd laughed together in years. Then Claire looked at me. "I'm sorry I made Sophie feel like her mother wasn't enough." That was the apology I cared about. Not the money. Not the house. My daughter. I stood up and hugged her. Not because everything was magically fixed. It wasn't. But because forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Sometimes it means deciding what happens next. Today, my company has grown even more. I still live in Seattle. I still drive the same practical SUV. I still make Christmas pies with Sophie. And my family finally knows what I do. But here's the part one value most. They no longer introduce me as Claire's little sister. They introduce me as Natalie. And that's enough. Because I learned something that Christmas. You don't have to prove your worth to people who already decided not to see it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying the people who underestimated you. It's building a life so undeniable that you no longer need their approval. And when Claire called me a nobody that Christmas night, she thought she was exposing my greatest weakness. She had no idea she was standing in front of the woman who owned the very future she was trying to buy. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need to say a word to prove it.